Howdy guys, Rex here. Today we're going to talk about turning the other cheek, okay? And this is something that actually had me a little bit tripped up for a lot of years. Although it didn't trip me up as bad as it could have, because generally when I interpret scripture, I think the scripture should be understood according to the way that it was kept by those that wrote it and what they did, okay? Because I understand that they didn't speak Shakespearean English. And so if anyone that can speak multiple languages understands that a lot of stuff is lost in translation, or even comes out to be the opposite if you don't understand the language. And so when I read scripture, I look at the great context of like, okay, God's people from the beginning to the end, from Alpha to Omega, have always been in combat, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and on every level, against evil. Always. Ever since evil was there, they were combating it. And if you want to get into like the wars and the history of all these things happened, they weren't all. Some of them were to cleanse evil from the land when they were on the right side. And other times it was so that they could be corrected and judged. But combat was something that God's people were very well versed with. And if you even read the end of the book, when the man comes back around, it's going to be like Godzilla times infinity. I mean, he's going to take his robes, dip them in the blood of the martyrs, put on his battle gear, and he's going to be like, read it. You'll just like be like, there's like, what's that guy? Peter Jackson could not make a movie that could accurately represent what's going to happen when he comes back. No more Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Correction type guy. So the concept of turning the other cheek is interesting. So let's read the full passage, and then we'll go through it word by word. And we're also going to look at context. Like, let's start with context, okay? So like in John 18, I don't know if you guys remember, Jesus rebukes the guard who struck him. Well, if you're never supposed to resist an evil man, then why would he strongly rebuke the guard that struck him? See, there's a one point of contact. That's not enough. We need a lot more. You can look at Acts, and these are just examples from the New Testament, okay? Acts 16, Paul didn't really turn the other cheek in that situation, okay? Or if you look at even Acts like 23, Paul did not maintain silence when he got struck. In fact, he rebuked them very strongly. He said, you guys are going to get your butts handed to you by the Almighty when he comes to judge you for messing with me. So he rebuked him. He didn't just not resist evil. He strongly braced himself and rebuked that idea. Okay? He blocked the punch and issued strong warning. And so if you go, and if you read the entire Bible, it's just like, how come King David killed thousands of dudes? Killed them all the way to death. I did a video on this topic earlier talking about how the Bible is not for wussies, okay? I'll put the link if I remember in the bottom here. It's a good video. It takes you through the context of God's people and how they have to fight sometimes, okay? And of course, there's Psalm 144:1. Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. It's kind of like the motto on all the 101 instructionals we did for all them years, right? So what is Jesus talking about here when he says Matthew 5:39, if you want to follow along? I'll be reading from the Shakespearean, okay? So Yeshua, Jesus, says, before this he's talking about, that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You see, back in the Mosaic law days, they had to have laws saying like, hey, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's not increasing the level of violence and vengeance. It's actually decreasing it. It's saying do not take more than what is required to correct the situation when it comes to things. Plus, there's a judicial system that needs to be followed through. No vigilantism. You have to go through the process, take it to the judges. They'll do diligent inquiry, and the punishment has to fit the crime. So if you lost an eye, then the guy can't lose any more than an eye. It's actually restraining the level of violence and all that stuff. The eye for eye concept, okay? So that's the context there. We wouldn't understand that if we didn't read it. So reading is always good. It always is helpful. We can accelerate our understanding by reading things, right, guys? Okay? And so let's take a look at Matthew 5:39. So he says, before this, some have said, like eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. Well, in English, that sounds like if someone slaps you, don't resist it, just turn the other cheek and let them slap you again. And there's been all kinds of expository preaching on this that actually feels good. Like, wow, the idea of being a martyr, just letting evil slap you around, letting evil have its way. If a guy comes and robs your wife, just hand over all the jewelry. If someone's going to rape your kids, just, okay, hand them over, and whenever you're done, then we'll just pray some more. Like, that's the kind of the path this deal goes down. And to me, it never made a lot of sense, but I figured due to the greater context of the scriptures, there had to be more to it. However, it was a little bit of a stumbling block to me because every time, like, there's this thing inside of me that doesn't like evil shit. And so when I see it, I want to take care of it. And so that attitude has always been something, this pops up in my brain because people tell me this all the time. They bring up this verse all the time. And it's, I don't know, it's just cumulative. It's a cumulative misunderstanding of this deal that has caused me to not stumble, but it was drag. It was producing excess drag. And I mentioned it to a brother just like a few weeks ago, who actually, his job is to kill bad guys all the time, all over the world, in places you never heard of, that there was a war. And so I brought it to him, and he's in the same page as us. He's cool. And I brought it to him. I'm like, yeah, man, I have a problem turning the other cheek. Like, that's one of my things that I wish I could be better with, And he's like, actually, you don't even know what the hell that thing says. And I'm like, huh? Because I'm like Mr. Bible reading guy. At least I thought, right? We can always improve our understandings. And so me respecting my brother, okay, because I like to compare notes with everybody else, not just me, like multiple witnesses from multiple angles so that you can triangulate in on the real deal. He says, dude, check out that verse again. Look at it more closely. Read it in its original language. In this case, it's in Greek, okay? Read it in Greek, and you'll understand. Not to mention that there's also the Hebrew versions of Matthew they're finding now, which are straightening out a lot of these ideas as well. And so I looked at it in Greek. He didn't give me the answer. He made me dig for it. And here's what I found. You ready for this one? But I say unto you, basically means the same thing in English, that ye resist not evil, okay? That ye resist is andastami in Greek. Andastami, I believe is how you say it. Okay? And not, so that ye resist not evil. Now, not there is in Greek the word me, okay? Which means God forbid with, okay? So God forbid with evil. Now dig this. I'll repeat this with the more full understanding of the language in 2020 English. But I say unto you that ye, anastami, not resist, God forbid, with evil. When you do your resisting, don't do it with evil. Don't go beyond that eye for an eye and tooth for tooth idea. So he's expounding on the law, which is already there, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It's a limitation of like, hey, don't like take more vengeance. Don't like go outside the court process. Like keep a measured response. The forced continuum, right? Okay. So, but I say unto you, anastama, that ye resist not evil. Now in English that sounds backwards, but it says not is the word me. God forbid with evil. Okay, that's making more sense. Don't resist with evil. God forbid. So reading on, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. This is where we got to be careful in exactly what we read. Because when it says turn to him the other also, that's where we get screwed up. So, whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn. Strepho in Greek. I didn't notice that. Strafo means to strengthen it from the base of. So when someone slaps you, you don't just turn, oh, hit me again, please. You turn and you strengthen it. So you brace for it. You're like, okay. And you get into a defensive posture. You heighten your level of security. You like go, all right, here we go. Like someone just slapped me, you're going to defensively like strengthen your cheek, okay? To him. So like when you're turning your cheek to him, that to him word is actually atos, okay? Which is used specifically to express opposition and distinction. Dig that. So you're going to strengthen your cheek in opposition in a distinctly different way. And in the word here, in a different way, to him differently, the other also. So when it says the other cheek, right? That's allos, which in allosaurus means other kind, other saurus, other terrible lizard, like a different saurus. A different Tosaurus and is dinosaur stuff. Sorry, guys. Okay. But when it says turn to him, the other also, the other specifically allos, which is in a different, distinctly different kind of way. And when it says also, that's key. The Greek word that basically means in a way of cumulative force. So let's read through it, understanding the Greek, and translating it from Shakespearean English into 2020 English. But I say unto you, that ye resist not, God forbid, with evil, okay, because that's the word me, God forbid, with evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, strengthen that cheek from the base of strafo to him, atos, when used in opposition. So strengthen your cheek in opposition distinctly in a different, distinct fashion, allos, auto allos, with cumulative force, which means gain a little horsepower by tuning into the Almighty and taking a position of strength and security in him, turning the other cheek and strengthening it, and then opposing that evil strike, just like they did throughout the context in all of Scripture. All of Scripture this happens, by the way, okay? But it's in a different way. So basically the summary here is Messiah taught by his words and deeds, as did the apostles and Paul, right? One of the apostles, not to collapse in the face of evil, but rather to resist evil while resisting the temptation to do it in a wrong way by hating the evildoer, but resisting the evil strongly, okay? Pretty cool. So when it says, turn to him, the other also, it is literally saying, strafo atos allos ki, which is strengthen the cheek in a way of opposition, in a way that's different than what they did, and give them cumulative force. How about them apples? Now you see, we read way too fast over a lot of this stuff. There is so much there. And if something in the English seems weird, there's probably a reason. Check the context. Check the context first. That's why it didn't like totally get me totally down the wrong path for all my life, is because I was very familiar with the context of not only God's people back in the old days, but also through the story of the Gospels. The context was that he rebuked the Pharisees all the time. John the Baptist rebuked his political leaders when they were messed up, right? Remember that time he got his head cut off for yelling at politicians, right? And then, if you look at what's going to happen eschatologically, he's going to come back and kick the world's ass. So the idea never held water as interpreted commonly by churchianity. So hopefully that helps. So if someone slaps you, strengthen that cheek, but in a very discerning, different way. Don't take any crap, but in a measured response, return with cumulative force in a way that's not out of line, not taking vengeance, not hating the evildoer, but resisting the evil with huge strength and authority from a position of, okay, cumulative force. Because it shows the strength of the Father when little old us can stand up against such huge, great evil. It blows their mind. They're like, what's up with this little guy all of a sudden like being like tough and like, you just hit me? What was that? Where are you gonna, huh? And then you come back with cumulative force, you're like, it psychs them out. Just like it does with a band of any kind of gang. Evil runs away from righteousness every time. So don't be scared of evil. Don't take it. Strengthen yourself to it and respond in a measured way from a position of authority from the Almighty. Rex out.